about 6 conversations going with about 6 issues that pertain to other meetings, but the meeting that we're calling to order here right now is the Committee of the Whole meeting for the Administration and Finance Committee of Monday, March the 12th. And we're going to deal with the agenda that we've got in front of us, not the hidden agenda.
We're going to attempt to.
Yeah, we're going to attempt it. All right, so the meeting is called to order, and item number 2 on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I'd like to have a motion to approve the agenda as presented. I have Councillor Barrett and seconded by Deputy Mayor Taylor. Those in favor? The motion is carried. So it's approved as presented. And item number 3 on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures here this evening?
No.
No disclosures, okay. And then item number 4 on the agenda is business arising from the previous Administration Finance Committee meeting. Does anybody have any issues to raise from the minutes? I have one, I'd like to get it clear in my mind, because on page 7 of the minutes, that's page 7 of 8, item number 8 on the agenda, we were asked to postpone the Community Development Committee meeting scheduled for Easter Monday, April the 2nd, be moved to April the 3rd. And there was consensus to reschedule the Community Development Committee meeting for April the 3rd. But I got it in my book on the 4th.
Yeah,
Okay, so somehow got switched from the 3rd to the 4th.
just for entertainment purposes. Actually, I think there was another committee meeting that night, I think it's recreation, so instead of trying to divide and conquer with staff, we decided to take it easy on them and separate the two.
Okay, so there is another meeting on the 3rd then, is
Yeah,
there?
recreation. Good evening, Evelyn.
Sorry I'm late.
You're allowed.
I almost got a ticket.
Speed demon, eh?
Reading.
Okay, so, all right, so I'll show it for the 4th. All right, are there any other items of rising from the previous administration and finance committee? None, okay. So now I'm moving to item 5 on the agenda, and I see the president of the Chamber of Commerce has arrived in the nick of time. So,
No speeding tickets.
no speeding tickets. So, Bonnie, I have you on the agenda now for your presentation. We generally allow about 10 minutes,
Okay,
and then questions after that.
okay, I can go ahead.
Yeah?
Okay, where would you like me to stand, over here?
Yeah,
or
if you like, yeah.
Can I see me though? I'll just kind of stand over here.
you're comfortable.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, my name is Bonnie Pigeon Kugler. I just got married in June, and I am the Executive Director of the South Grenville Food Bank. But I, with great honor, was elected this year, probably nobody else wanted the job, to be President of the Chamber of Commerce of South Grenville. So that is a very proud moment for me, because I have been involved with the Chamber most of my life with my other role as the Food Bank Executive. So tonight I'm here to talk about the fact that the South Grenville Chamber of Commerce is celebrating 125 years. I don't look a day over 50. So,
I was gonna say
I
20.
got one. So the great part of this is, as we've been working with the Grenville Historical Society to collaborate together to put on a celebration, I started to realize and learn a lot about Board of Trades, about chambers, and about the fact how important they are and how they mold our communities. We have a great committee, and Darren is on that committee, of trying to realize and have this great celebration. So we are having a party. So I'm here for a couple reasons. One, I'll get it off the table right now. We are requesting $500 to help us with the, we've asked all 3 townships to contribute $500 towards the celebration. The date has been settled for April 24th. It's a Tuesday from 5 to 7. At 4:30 and at 7, when the party is done, there's walking tours with the Historical Society. We have lots of really great things planned. We've been really careful on our budget. This is not for us to waste a whole bunch of money, but this is an opportunity to show our community, certainly praise the people that have worked in the chambers that are still still alive. It's my understanding there's a female president who's in her 90s. Hopefully she'll be able to come. So we had the Historical Society come to our AGM, and it was so cool that the chamber, and it was called Board of Trade, actually was involved in creating the cheese board. So I feel very strongly that we have to look at the past, we have to respect that, but it's our responsibility as council, as chamber, as communities, and as business to create the future. And I hope 100 years from now, when they look back, I hope they say, well, wasn't that cool that they thought of doing this? Like the bioeconomy and all these other things. I'm learning as they go, so I'm pretty green, but I have a lot of people around me that are very supportive and very kind. So I'm hoping that that will be a good thing. I am very proud to be in a township of South Grenville. It's a county of South Grenville that has 3 amazing townships. Here, my last presentation, I went to the other 2, and it went quite well. One was very foggy, one was very snowy, so I thank you for good weather tonight. We have lots of things planned for our big celebration. It's kind of like a business after 5 where it's light meal. Again, we didn't want to waste a whole bunch of money because that's our members' money. But we didn't want the 125th to come and go without any real celebration. There is a rumor on the table that we are actually purchasing wooden nickels. The wooden nickels apparently were used in a celebration in 1936 or something like that, 39. So we are going to replicate that. We're going to have a slideshow. We're also working with the Prescott Journal of doing in the past. We're just going to be working with a lot of things. We're also going to have the opportunity, which is my goal for 2018, to work with other chambers. I believe stronger is better. I don't believe we all have to be single. We've already been working with the Augsburg Chamber of Commerce, and we've had some relationship with them over the last month. We are going to be going to their meetings. They're going to be coming to one of ours as one of our guests. Apparently, way back in the Board of Trade, they actually, there was no bridge, so they walked across. I didn't realize that. That's kind of cool, so we're trying to build up that relationship. But we're also going to be considering, you know, our Dundas, Brockville, Merrickville, other chambers, and let's all get together and build a strong community. So I thank you. I thank you for having me here tonight. If anybody wants to sit on the committee, there's always room. We only started in January and the party's in April, so we keep on picking a few up, so you're welcome to be part of that. We are asking for a small contribution of $500 to cover our basic costs. The reason we did it in Prescott was only because of logistics, because really the walking tour was very important. So that is it for my presentation this evening. If there's any questions, I'm available right now for those.
Okay, so we got a few questions out.
Certainly.
And I'll start.
They did their homework.
First hand up.
I'm good.
Yeah, I am too. Bonnie and I have talked about this a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, at the mayor's breakfast.
Any other questions here? One?
Did you put the application in for the $500?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, thank you, Rebecca.
Okay, so that request will go through our
Yes.
normal line item on the budget, right?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll deal with that probably sometime, well, it is March already. When's that come up for discussion? Beg pardon?
April admin finance?
April in Min-Finance, so that'll be.
We'll take the money late if necessary. No problem.
The
You're still
other-
invited to the party. The other thing I wanted to say, and you're gonna say this is weird, but we kept the prices really low because we didn't want to, it's not an event where we wanna make thousands of dollars. We are gonna work with the Historical Society to make sure if there is money left over, they get a contribution because they're doing a lot of the legwork. But our tickets are $12.50 for 125 years. And your business can contribute $125 for advertising the night of the event, and I'll get a poster on the wall. So we kept the price really low. That way, anybody who wanted to come could come.
These are all businessmen, they know how to write business checks.
They do, they can write them that night. We have a 50-50 too. Well, we were afraid that, to be honest with you, Pat, we have a bit of homework to do as a chamber. We have to prove ourselves again, and we have to show that we have worth, because over the last few years, not just our chambers, but a lot of chambers, people say, why would I join? What have you done for me lately? And I just want to prove that we are doing things. We have, a little bit off topic, we have a workshop coming up in March that I just secured for free. It's $1,000 value, and it's going out to all our members for free. I want to prove that joining the chamber, you're part of the bigger picture. You're part of, there's going to be opportunities for growth, as your business, we will do everything in our power to do that, but we're gonna work together as a team. And this workshop that we're offering, I just secured it on Friday. Like I said, it's $1,000 value. We're getting it for free through Granville Community Futures. It has to be used up by March 31st. That's why it's kind of late out the gate. But it'll be on website, and I will send you guys the information. All members can go
Is there a
back.
date for it?
So Bonnie, sorry,
Yeah, in March.
so are you gonna start advertising soon? Like
Yes.
newspapers and-
Wednesday is when we're starting. All our invitations are correct. We had to secure the food.
Yeah, yeah.
Before we advertised, we wanted to secure that we had food, because if the food didn't come in as cheap as it did, obviously our price would have had to go, because we had to break even. We had a break-even analysis for this event, and the food came in extremely cheap. We're really lucky.
So in the papers this week,
It'll be sent out to all the members this week, probably in the paper 2 weeks from now.
and Facebook and stuff like that?
Yep, we've already put it on our Facebook.
Okay.
Yep, you'll be there, right?
Okay, Councilor Morel has a question.
Yep.
I couldn't let you go without a question, Bonnie.
Eh?
Bonnie, you said
Yeah.
it was gonna be in Prescott.
Yes.
Where
Oh,
specifically in
thank
Prescott?
you, the Royal Canadian Legion. We looked at the Fort Wellington, because we thought historically, wouldn't that be cool? But it only took 60 people, and this party's gonna have at least 125, so.
Okay.
High hopes.
Anybody else got a question in here? Okay, so we understand what you're up to.
Yep,
So there's two things really to watch
Yep.
for. That's April the 24th, and then the other thing is this workshop that you've got coming.
and we'll send that out as an email blast as well.
Okay, and then we'll deal with the $500 request through the normal course of our process.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to sit on that committee, like I said, there's an extra seat, so you're welcome.
Okay. Now, just one final question
Yes,
before
sir.
you go.
Mhm.
You said we're the third of the presentations that you're
Yes.
making. So I'll just paint the picture for you and then ask the
Mhm.
question. So when we deal with this through our process, we have already approved our budget, and we
Mhm.
have X numbers of dollars in our budget to deal with all these kinds of requests.
Yes.
Generally, the asks that come in are triple and 4 times the amount that we have in the budget line, so
Yes.
most of the asks
Mhm.
get scaled back a little bit as we try to accommodate the greater number. Which means that there's a potentiality, if you requested 500, that it's gonna get scaled back a bit. So the question that I'll ask you, in front of the rest of council,
Sure.
is did the other 2 municipalities commit firm commitments to the full amount?
One firm, one going to the last, they're gonna speak either this Monday or next Monday about the money. One has confirmed yes.
One hand,
And we really try to ask the minimum,
okay.
so
All
hopefully
right.
we won't scale back too much. We should have asked for 1,000.
No, that game doesn't get you anywhere.
Oh, I know. Yes, one has confirmed,
Okay. and
the
then
other one is
Same
pretty
position
sure.
we're in.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, well, thanks for your presentation.
Well, it's been a long time since I've been here, so I like coming to visit any capacity that I can. And I look forward to working with all of you in the next, I guess my term is 2 years. So I look forward to working, I look forward to having lots of advice, because it's always nice to have that. And like I said, I'm green, just like St. Patrick's,
Well,
so.
we're very sorry that we had our little scroll for your annual general meeting, but as you know, I had to leave to get
Yes,
to county council.
but we have it,
Okay, you got it.
we
Okay,
have it,
good,
and it's
yeah.
just beautiful, thank you
Okay.
so much. Thank
Alrighty,
you.
thanks very much. Okay, so I'm moving on then, on the agenda to item number 6. And item number 6 is discussion items, and there's nothing listed there. So I'll go on to item number 7 on the agenda. And item 7 is the action information items. The first one is the proclamation request gift from the Heart Day. Councillor Barrett.
I'll move their, do you need a mover for this, or for
Yeah.
the proclamation?
Yeah, the council, the committee's gonna recommend, so moved by somebody that the committee recommends.
I'll move that.
Okay, so Councillor Barrett moves the recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Morel?
Yes, this is something I can really sink my teeth into.
Go ahead.
No.
It was a joke.
Oh,
It's Jerry's green attempt at humor.
Free hygienic value for people who, may face a hard time, getting good dental care for the dependents in Johnstown and so forth, so it's a very
It's a good thing.
Tuesday proclamation.
Oh, man, right over. I finally got it. Okay, I have a motion on the floor, moved by Barrett, seconded by Morel, that the recommendation be approved as printed. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. That recommendation will come to council on the 26th. And so then I'm moving to 7B, which is the current internet costs. And I had asked for this report because I'm very interested in this program that Bell has, and I asked Jack to do some work on this today. So there's a whole, the staff's put together a very comprehensive report here to show our speeds. And the reason I'm so interested is because the presentation that I heard at County Council, they were talking about 100 up and 100 down, which is quite a significant difference from what I see here. And I know that when they talk about 100 up and 100 down, doesn't necessarily mean 100 hard. It's a kind of a standard that they aim for. But in any case, are there any questions, first of all, with the report? Let's deal with that first.
I have one, maybe staff can verify that, on the first page, the chart, it shows the township hall as a fiber to the node system, and a speed of 15 down and 10 up. Is the 10 a misprint? Is it really 1 up?
Yeah, yes, actually it is. It's a 1 up.
So the reason I asked the question is 0.58 is terrible if it's 10. But 5.8's not that good even if it's 1, but anyways, okay.
Okay, so, now, so what is this difference, why is there a difference between the chart showing the internet speeds and the actual speed test results that were conducted on March the 1st? Is the chart is what we purchase, is it not? And then the actual speed test that we conduct is what we basically get. And I know at my house it's the same thing, you're always a little bit shy. But 0.58 up is really kind of low. Are there any other questions now with this? I heard one someplace. Do we offer Wi-Fi in the building here? Do we offer it at the rinks? Yeah,
To the public.
Do we get,
On a different, like,
On a
different
guest
network.
level.
We have a Wi-Fi network for public, as well as a Wi-Fi network for our own purposes.
oh,
You
okay,
have
so.
2 networks? Like you're using 2 different networks then?
Okay. So in other words,
Which one is shown here, though? Like when you say Spencerville Arena, is that the one that's associated with us? It's not the
I
public
believe
one?
so, yeah. Like, I would defer to the treasurer on this one, she did the research, so.
It's not the public one then?
No.
Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
my house is set up with 2 different networks as well, but I have 1 bill. So this is, would this be inclusive? Because mine's 1.
This is basically the bill itself,
Yeah, okay, so that's for both then?
Yeah.
And then it's just different access codes?
the different access
Right,
codes
yeah.
depending on whether it's,
Now, I guess what I'm responding to is the general commentary that goes around that the system's slow, right? If you look at the Spencerville Arena, it's a DSL business line facility. The 50 gigabytes is the cap, okay? So if you've got public people in an arena accessing that network, and I know the arena's not full all the time, but that's not nearly enough. Okay, because what happens is when you get to the 50 gigabytes, I don't know what Joe Computer does. Does he charge you more? Or does he slow you down? My ISP, like I have 10 down and 1 up, and I have a 200 gigabyte cap. If I go beyond 200 gigabytes, He doesn't charge me extra, but he does slow me down so that I get crappy service. So I don't know what Joe's doing, Joe Computer's doing for you guys, okay? So that's something to look into.
Well, do we know the answer?
Yes, actually, through the chair, I do know the answer. We do not get charged for additional overages.
So you'll get slowed
So
down.
the speed is what is affected for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, but now I don't, now I need education here before we go on. So what, so he slows you down, so the 50 gigabytes that you're talking about, that's your cap, is that for the month or for the day or the week?
For the month.
Okay, so if I go beyond that in the first week of the month, he slows me down for the rest of the month?
Yeah.
Oh, so do we notice that effect here in the office?
Well, if I may, the example that Mr. Bradley presented was at the arena, and of course, we don't actually use the internet at the arena for business purposes a whole lot. So any slowdown there, as an example, would be felt by our
The people who are
patrons.
on that network?
No, yes, our patrons who are accessing wireless through our building for free. So,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Take those complaints with a grain of salt, because they're not paying for it. As far as the office goes, we have, I can't honestly say I've noticed any slowdown here. You know, I think it's important to look at the chart that was prepared on page 2 that talks about what applications might be, you know, what speed range is needed for which application. You know, even at the 5 to 10 megabytes per second, we would never use large file sharing too much through this office. It's,
What about GIS, using GIS?
it's, the GIS system is internet-based, but the data is held at the county, so it's a relatively,
So you don't use it that much then.
you know, I mean, I don't know enough about it to really be giving you technical information, but, on the whole, we're mostly satisfied with our internet.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, the 5 to 10 range for the purposes in the office here, seems reasonable, but one up is, when I saw 10 up, I thought the same thing as Mr. Bradley. I thought that's excellent, and that's all we'd ever need. And I'm thinking about any kind of video conferencing, it's because it's the upload that you really need, so that there's not a lag in the video. The half up, the 0.49 up, is not good. I talked to a local business person who runs an office from their home here in Spencerville, and they were able to work with our ISP to improve their upload speed. And for our purposes, you know, like just looking at what's offered with this Bell, the Bell package, it looks like the fire hall and the water plant in Cardinal would be able to get on fiber, and with capital costs as an additional charge. But they don't really need fiber there. If any building in the municipality needed fiber, it'd be here, or the libraries potentially, which is separate. I know they manage their own. So Spencerville Library could never get it without considerable cost, but the Cardinal Library could. So,
But there's what I just wanna, I know what you're saying, but the way it was explained at county council is that if this is a special program that Bell runs only for municipalities, and if the municipalities will take the 10-year contracts, Bell puts in the fiber at no capital cost to the township. There's no capital.
I mean, if we could bring fiber into Spencerville, I mean,
It's here, it's just not in this building.
Well, there's no one using it though. There's no commercial or residential fiber optic users in the village.
Isn't there fiber in Cardinal?
There is. It runs all the way along Highway 2, so
Yeah.
so it's available. And like the Port of Johnstown, well, Giant Tigers has a fiber connection, so you can branch it off. But
There's fiber here though, because the town hall has fiber to the node. That's what the FTTN means, fiber to the node, okay?
So you got fiber to
And
the
so
node, which is
from
to
the
the switch.
switch, from the switch to some place, a cabinet, there's a piece of fiber. Likely from this building to the cabinet is copper. Okay? So it's a combination of copper plus fiber.
So I assumed based on these speed tests that the offering that we were getting from our ISP was a like fiber, because we wouldn't get speeds like that if there was a fiber, multi-mode fiber running into this building. So you're
You get
saying.
far higher speeds.
So, right, so you're saying that it's,
You've got copper somewhere in
it's just
your
copy,
network.
oh, okay.
Okay, I don't know where it is, because I don't know the layout, but, but Joe Computer should know where it is. And the other thing is that if you've got a slowdown problem, quite often Bell, in the old technology, when everything was copper, they used to put on the cables a piece of equipment called a loading coil. And this improved the voice communications. When they went to data and data speeds that are going up all the time, they have to take those loading coils off. If they don't take them off, it impairs the service. Excuse me. So there's a possibility that he doesn't even know it, Joe Computer, I mean, that there's a loading coil on here.
That's inhibiting things.
It could inhibit stuff, and he doesn't even know it. Because, I don't know if you know how a copper network's put together, but the cable that you're on here, from wherever here to the node, goes all through the town and down the county road and the whole bit, okay? And in the industry, we called it bridge tap. And when they go to data services, they try to remove most of that bridge tap so that you have a nice clean line between you and the switch. But they don't always do it. It costs Bell money to do that, and they're not diligent at it. So if you're experiencing any kind of problems, Joe Computer should be digging into it for you. Like you said, the customer that you know, the business guy, he got some help from his ISP.
Yeah, so because we're not gonna benefit from a plain old telephone system, POTS.
No.
If we're connecting to the fastest internet in the world,
No,
you
you
can't put a fire hose pressure through the garden hose that we're getting in the
Yeah.
building. So, if it's right there, then we really should take advantage.
For example, like you know that like Spencerville Public Works, I guess that is it, PW? They've got a wireless point-to-point packet. Now, I don't know, he owns the radios, I presume Joe Computer owns the radios. But if you were going into a system and the capital costs were prohibitive, you can go and buy radios. So the town would own the radios, and you can put a point-to-point network up. And so you could connect the arena and the public works and the whole thing with your own radio system. And just use the fiber from here to the switch. The switch is only, what, 500 yards or something.
Yeah. And my interest was when it was explained at county council was that Bell would provide that last bit of fiber to the home, or to the building.
Under the 10-year plan.
Under the 10-year plan.
Under the 10-year plan for most of, it depends again on distance. They're not gonna go 10 miles with fiber. But, you know, all our locations are close. In Cardinal as well as here. So those small distances, they'll throw that fiber in for nothing. And then you'll have 100% fiber network.
Which would be, and one of the reasons that I was interested too was I kept thinking back to do you remember the county emergency response exercise that we held? And we kept getting the disruptions. Some of it was caused at the other end. We didn't know how much of it was being caused here, but I think the overall end result of that exercise was that we realized that the limiting restriction on that exercise was the internet, the capability of the internet connections. And so that's why I kind of picked up on it. But the note that I did have was that they're prepared to send a speaker to our, or somebody to explain their offering, if I can put it that way, to our April meeting, and I guess to just resolve this current discussion here, would we be interested in having a little bit closer look at what the availability is? Because, I mean, I don't want to be tilting at a windmill that doesn't exist. I'd like to know for sure that, I mean, and FFTN means fiber to the net, to the node. So, and I don't know whether we have that in Cardinal or not. Like, in Cardinal, do we have fiber to the node at the library? We don't know that, do we?
They're on DSL.
They're on DSL, which is all copper.
Yeah, so so really we just need to find out if the junction box, the closest junction box has that
Fiber.
fiber available. And that's a real game changer about what you can do. And you know, and you could have someone from Toronto make a presentation to council and we could interact with them, you know, in real time. But with 0.59 up, it would be embarrassing to try and have that video conference.
No, they're interested in sending somebody here to the meeting.
No, I mean that if we
Oh,
were
yeah.
trying to video conference with
Yeah.
that, so, I'd love to hear from the presenter.
The other thing is, you did your speed test yourself? You
No,
can do
through
it
the-
from- You can do it from here, you know?
Yeah, I have done it, but this particular speed test was done by Joe himself.
Yeah. Okay, so I check mine maybe 3-4 times a month. And it's interesting because I have, as I mentioned, I got 10 down, 1 up. And I was getting 0.9 and 1 today, going up. But I'm only getting 4 down, 3.97. It's break week. Every kid in the universe is on the internet.
Yeah.
So it's not because of my local network, it's because the backbone is congested. And the backbone goes from here probably up towards Ottawa some way. And in certain times, you're gonna get congestion in that part of the network as well. So these events like March break, national holiday, or school holidays, snow days when they're all off and they're all on the disasters and things of that sort can affect the network speed. So I would suggest, recommend that you check your own speeds, like maybe once or twice a month, just to see what you're actually getting.
10.8 down and 0.45 up right now, connected wireless.
Yeah.
And it would be faster with a
Well,
wire.
with the wire, with the fiber network, it would be
Yeah.
faster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, to just sort of resolve this discussion, I think that, I hear some comment around the table that there would be interest in a presentation to just get us a little bit more information. And in the meantime, if the, you know, I don't know how we would go about arranging that. I tried to get a hold of Jim Pine or Lisa today. I didn't speak to either one of them, but I think, was there a connection with Lisa? Lisa
Yeah, I
Severson?
spoke to Lisa this afternoon,
What did she say?
and she said that they'd love to come out and put on a presentation. So I said, well, okay, either Deb or yourself could
Okay.
contact her.
Okay, so maybe what we'll do is we'll get you in touch with Lisa and Severson. Now, the only thing is, I don't want her talking about the new EORN program. I just want her to talk strictly about this program that Bell has. I would much, actually, better than Lisa, I would prefer to have the Bell sales guy here, if we can find out who he is.
She knows who he is.
She knows.
She's the one, I didn't get his name, but they actually are the ones that, EORN triggers it, and then Bell takes over and does everything. Okay. So
Okay.
he'll be the guy that coordinates the order or whatever we're gonna do.
Okay. All right, well, let's sort of leave that in abeyance in the hands of staff and see where, maybe get something organized for the April meeting then. Okay, and by the way, I think the challenge that we wanna throw to that guy, sort of in the setup between now and the time he appears in April, is even though we are interested in the program that they have available for municipal customers, is there any way at all that that can be extended to some of the closer commercial customers, like the person you're talking about. I know that in the township here, we have quite a number of people that are trying to conduct home-based businesses over the internet. Some are being more successful than others. And I don't really understand all the limitations, but I know that different people are talking to me different times, and it all seems to be a function of why can't we get, quote, better internet? Faster, broadband, faster and more robust. So, okay, so let's just leave that as an issue. And we'll move on to 7C, which is the business showcase and expo permit, alcohol at the event. And again, we have a briefing note with a recommendation here. Chair, okay, I have a mover, which is Councillor Smale, to move the recommendation that committee recommends that council support, da-da-da-da. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Taylor, is there any discussion, any further discussion on this briefing note?
May I ask, just, it's gonna be at the, obviously the showcase at Ingredients Center, where do they propose to have this wine? Is the wine open, or is it just like
It's
a
for the
committee?
brewery,
Right?
it's for the brewery that comes, they get it every year.
Oh, I see, okay, just, all right,
Oh, we've had them before?
Yep.
Oh,
We had one last year.
all right.
all right. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And so then I'm proceeding to 7D, which is the investment of the industrial park land sales proceeds. And this is the second parcel that we've sold. This is the 2.2 acre sale to 2616316 Ontario Inc. Net proceeds of, don't see it, 66,000. So, recommendation here as to where this money gets housed. Looking for a mover and a second.
I second.
Okay, Mr. Bradley, and I'll take Councillor Smale as the mover.
The net proceeds was 62,147.73.
62,147.
Yeah, yeah, that's the net, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the treasurer shows how it's being divided between the industrial park land reserve fund and the industrial park wastewater fund. Okay, further questions of any? Hearing none, those in favor? That's carried. So then out of our 12 acres that we retained, we've sold 2.47 and 2.2, is that correct?
I think both parcels were 2.2.
Both parcels were
I
2.2?
believe so, yeah.
Okay.
One being cleared right now.
Yeah, Mr. Lucy's is already cleared. Sure looks great. We'll be after him to make us an announcement, an official announcement soon. 7E, lame duck councils, man, oh man, this becomes the clerk's nightmare. Now, as I understand it, there's no, well, there is a recommendation here. But the recommendation is for a change in the hiring policy, which anticipates that there may or may not be a hiring issue during the lame duck period. And my question to staff is, I understand that the lame duck period is a little bit long here, but why would we have any reason to believe that there'd be a hiring that would need to be done during that period of time? What's that? Sorry.
Firing?
No, we can't do that during the period.
Right.
Yeah.
If I may,
Yeah.
if authority is delegated, then you can, during that period, hire and fire employees. Our current delegation of authority bylaw does delegate that authority, but the hiring policy has that sentence in it that restricts for statutory appointments. So I'm not the least bit concerned about firing. I am more concerned about hiring. And there's workarounds. I'm not suggesting that that it has to be done this way, but if, heaven forbid, a statutorily appointed officer were to fall ill or, you know, or die, you would be restricted for that 180 days of not appointing a new individual to fill that role.
Because of the clause that says that council will be involved in the hiring of those positions.
It goes a little further than saying involved, because council will make the final hiring decision.
Council will make the final hiring decision based on the recommendation of the hiring team, and the hiring team is to include a member of council, right?
Didn't the municipal act state that when it came to the certain positions, that council was the body to do the hiring?
No.
The treasurers?
No, they're statutory positions,
Okay, and council must make the appointment, there's no question about that,
yeah.
where the position is appointed by bylaw, but.
Okay.
Can staff find a way to, instead of making a change to the hiring policy, which would sort of survive the election, if I can put it that way, can staff find a way to make a change to the bylaw, or a wording change to the bylaw in such a manner that that particular sentence is suspended during the lame duck period of council? So then after the election, we would be back to the situation where council retains a person on the hiring team and the final decision.
Potentially, that would be 5 completely different individuals than those who are sitting here. So my
Thank you.
suggestion, you're welcome. So my suggestion would be that the bylaw be changed and the new council then reconsider putting that sentence back in, rather than this council trying to dictate to the next council what those hiring policies might look like.
Well, the reverse of that could be true as well. So, I mean, the council, this is a, having council involved in that hiring decision is an important council role for when, especially when it's senior management, and that's who, you know, you have to work more closely with, right, than the people that are not senior management, who are involved with you guys every day. And I think that if there is a way to word it so that during the lame duck period, you know, this will apply, but that's it, and then it'll apply for every council thereafter, because.
Well, unless they change it.
Unless they change it, and so if staff decide that they have a new council and they wanna see it changed, then they just would bring it to council as a recommendation that the council change it, and then they will have this discussion, rather than us taking that right and obligation and responsibility away from them.
Okay, and fair point, Madam Deputy Mayor. There is still a conflict between the delegation of authority bylaw and the hiring policy. And that's-
Yeah, well, okay, so, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, for the CAO, in your briefing note, there's a line of, a note about the delegated spending authority for the Port Management Committee, so long as the expenditures are itemized in the approved annual budget. Expenditures that exceed the annual approved budget must be authorized by council. It will not be possible for council to grant that authorization during a lame duck period. So is there a desire for a change there, or is that just more information on the subject?
It's a bit of a heads up, honestly. Port Management Committee has, for the past number of years, each year often had to consider an item outside of budget. I think every year, there's something.
Well, for example, the 2 bins last year were right outside.
So that's really just a heads up to council and to Port Management Committee that if there's a lame duck period, there can't be that spending outside of the budget. So you wanna be you know, pretty cognizant of any things that's come.
One of the things that I was going to ask you to do was to take this identical briefing note and make sure that it's on the agenda for the Port Management Committee on the 21st, because this will be new. I know the general manager, I think this is the second election cycle that he's gone through, but he'll have to be aware of the fact that he's got some problems coming. And for those folks in the audience that don't know what we're talking about here when we're talking about lame ducks, if you haven't read the briefing note, basically there's a period of time when it's unknown who will be the next council, and the present council is very limited in what it can do. The briefing note is quite clear, and I think there are copies of it over there, so you can read the actual text of it, because it's a kind of a complicated, in some ways complicated concept. But the treasurer, the CAO and the clerk are making it very clear to us right now that we have to be aware of the fact that after July the 27th, our powers are intensely restricted. Potentially.
Maybe.
Yeah, potentially quite restricted. And that period of restriction can last up until election day, which is October the 22nd, and then beyond that to November the 30th, which is the swear-in date. There's
December 1st,
December the 1st, which is the swear-in date of the new council.
which is actually going to be.
Okay, so, I don't know that we've resolved this,
Jack has a question.
with a
The
get
other
around.
restriction we have, Mr. Mayor, is on the real estate transactions, for example, right?
Yeah,
So we have St. Lawrence business, corridor business people out there trying to pound the bricks to get business and so on. And we're locked in from July 27th or 25th or what it is until the end of the period.
yeah, we can approve a sale up till July the 27th, and it can be allowed to close during the lame duck period. We just can't accept any offers after July 27th if we end up being a lame duck council. So I think the message to all of the people that are involved in economic development is if there's any potentiality for land sales, you have to get your offers
Yeah, get it
in
in now.
well before July.
Yeah, and this concept applies to all councils across. the
Yeah, it does.
corridor, so.
Yeah. But where we're especially vulnerable, in my mind, what makes us especially vulnerable is the fact that we're only 5 people. And basically, I think your number is 4. 4 have to be returning.
In the same position.
Right, so it's a combination of only 5 and the ward system. The ward system is what really, you know, if everybody was elected at large, 4 or 5 might well run for different positions, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it has to be one returning for Ward 1, one returning for Ward 2, one for each position. Well, one for 4 out of the 5 positions. So
Right.
it does make it a bit more complicated when we've got the ward system, for
Yeah.
sure.
And you know what, that is something that we probably should have anticipated before now. But long and the short of it is it's too late to make any of those kind of changes now. Okay, so we're back to the recommendation. My druthers is that we find a workaround that would see us through the lame duck period. But we do have a recommendation in front of us here. I know Deputy Mayor and I have both spoken looking for a workaround. I'd like to hear what other members of council and the committee have to say about that.
I'll move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay, so you're moving it? And I got Councillor Smale seconding it. Okay, further discussion, if any, go ahead.
Okay, and so, I appreciate the mayor's comments and the deputy mayor's comments on it, and I believe that, this council have exercised their duty and responsibility well, and I think that we continue to do that to the best of our abilities during that period, and, in December, on December 1st, a new group is gonna have to make a lot of decisions about how they choose to do business, and it's a bit of an exercise in futility for us to you know, well, we'll do this until then to see just in case, because if they don't like it, they're just gonna change it on that date anyway. And so, this is very clean, it's very straightforward, and so, it's really not for me to say after that point. So, during that period, the result is the exact same, is that, the hiring policy is going to, remove the requirement for council to make that final hiring decision. And what happens on December 1st is what happens on December 1st, so that's why I support the recommendation.
So, I just wanna clarify one thing. In the case of the statutory officer, the council still makes the final decision,
The bylaw has to be passed by council, that's correct.
eh?
The bylaw.
Yeah, even during the lame duck period. So all we're talking about is whether or not there's a member of council on the hiring team.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that very clear direction in the bylaw that says.
Yeah, okay, so it's still council makes final decision.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I was just reading from the recommendation, Mr. Mayor, and so that's what it says. The effect on the bylaw is, to your point, exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
But the recommendation, was where I drew that,
yeah, okay.
that turn of phrase.
Okay, you're next and then.
After the election, there's a number of bylaws that must be considered by the new council. For the procedural bylaw? No,
No.
it's not the procedure, which are they?
The hiring notice,
The hiring bylaw, this
yeah,
one?
yeah, the
Okay,
hiring
must
notice,
be.
the, you know, there are four or five, I
Yeah.
think, and I've forgotten now, there's notice, hiring, I mean, we did them all, it was on our
Yeah,
list for.
yeah.
Purchasing.
Purchasing, yes, procurement.
Procurement.
I don't have the hours right here, but there are 4 or 5 that have.
And
to
this
be
is the
written.
one of the four.
The hiring policy.
Okay, then I have to come, that it'll come forward.
Okay, so any further discussion? About to call the question on the recommendation. Those in favor? Okay, so I got 1, 2, up again. I got 5 up and I'm opposed if any, this is just the 2 of us. Okay, 5 and 2, so the motion is carried. Okay, so you'll bring that at the 26th then?
Yes.
Okay. All right, now the next is the ARB Appeals Representative, another one. Long briefing note here as well. And
And the recommendation.
another recommendation, so you're making it?
Councilor Smail.
Counselor Smale is moving it?
I can say.
Counselor Barrett is seconding it. That committee recommends that council approve the attached bylaw for delegated administrative matters with respect to the ARB to the treasurer or his or her designate up to a limit of $500,000. Okay, now, discussion of any.
That's a
Go
big-
ahead.
That's a pretty large chunk. To not come to council. Will we get notice of? Am I missing? Yeah.
It's assessment.
It's assessment value.
Assessment value.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Well, this minute now, is it assessment
I
value?
thought it was dollars.
It's assessment change, assessment change, not
Okay.
actual dollars.
And right now it's 100,000 that he's taking, okay, I was thinking of dollars, my bad, okay.
No, just refresh for me, when this kicks in. This kicks in at the request for reconsideration stage? No, okay, explain it to me again.
Currently with the new ARB rules, the ARB has asked that municipalities appoint a municipal representative at ARB or through an the appeals process. So if a person goes through an R4R and does not accept the minutes of settlement, they can appeal that, or commercial properties can go straight to appeal. So in both those cases, there is a schedule of events set between general proceedings and summary proceedings. There's a set of scheduled events that happen, and throughout that period, is a lot of disclosure from all parties, MPAC, the appellant, and the township. And And at some point, there's a prescribed time where you have a mandatory settlement conference. And at that conference, that municipal representative has to have binding authority out of that in order to participate in
Right.
that settlement.
Okay, so when I look at this chart that you've given us, and it looks to me like we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 8 appeals in front of us, right?
Yeah, and these are-
2 of which have been withdrawn, right?
Correct.
So we got 6 live appeals, and those live appeals don't come to the mandatory settlement conference until the earliest one is in March of 2019, right?
That is correct.
Okay, but what you're saying is that between now and March the 19th, there will be a process at which you have to be present with binding power. Okay.
Yeah, and you have disclosure, there's a lot of disclosure between the parties during those weeks. The list you have in front of you are what we call general proceedings. General proceedings are usually commercial, industrial properties, which are larger values, more complicated assessment. So they're handled separately, and there's a longer process of disclosure.
Right?
The summary proceedings for residential, farm, or multi-res are a shorter period of time. But we, again, even in those proceedings, we need to have binding authority to actually participate in the settlement conference.
Okay. Councilor Morel.
Just for clarification through the chair, we discussed this, I think, previously, and we had a discussion, and I think the recommendation was that there was some concern about going up to $1 million, and we kind of said, let's reach a happy medium. Was that not it? And so that's a result of this briefing note and the recommendation to go to what we suggested be done, basically, to have a representative there and from our township and
Yeah.
do it with that, so.
It's kind of settled on the $500,000.
I'm willing to.
Okay, no further discussion, I'll call the question on the recommendation. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, and so now I'm on to the set fines for animal control and clean yards. I'm so glad to see this coming forward. Just so happy. I think this is going to give us considerable more robustness in the enforcement of these 2 bylaws. So, the long and the short of it is, we do have a recommendation here, looking for a mover and a seconder. Councilor Morel
I'll
and
second.
Councilor Smale. The committee recommends that council amend the animal control bylaw and the clean yards bylaw to conform with the required general penalty provisions set out by the Ministry of the Attorney General, and approve the draft short form wording for the animal control bylaw and the clean yards bylaw set fines, and direct staff to submit for approval. So, discussion if any, Councilor Rivera.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. What, so there, I see the highlighted changes under penalties. Are there changes in the schedule, in the set fine schedule?
We didn't have a set fine schedule before. We didn't
So
have.
it was just the statutory maximum that we operated?
Well,
with?
basically, all that could happen is we had to take the person to court, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we weren't able to write a ticket. Having a set fine schedule allows us to just, the bylaw officer to just write a ticket.
Which can then be taken, they can appeal, they can
They-
be not
they can
guilty in
appeal,
court.
Yes, but they would be paid through court. Yeah, so to answer your question, the highlighted areas on the penalty clauses of the 2 bylaws have to be changed in order to allow us to adopt a set fine schedule.
Thank you.
Further discussion if any?
Yeah, I just wondered, like, has staff sort of surveyed other municipalities, and this is kind of in line with? what we-
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, other municipalities, they're all over the map because some of them haven't changed their set fine schedules for many, many years. We went with the newer ones as where possible, and certainly the deputy clerk did a significant amount of work while I was away to come up with these.
Now, one of the things that I just want to get absolutely clear in my mind, and I had a discussion with the bylaw enforcement officer today, and he is of the same opinion that I am, but I just want to get it very clear from the clerk's department. once we write a ticket to somebody, let's say a $300 ticket, if they don't pay that ticket, my understanding is that that ticket, the same as a highway traffic ticket, goes against their driver's license. And they will not get a renewal of their driver's license until the ticket is settled.
Wow.
But just so you know, the counties has on the county books well over $1 million of unpaid tickets. Well over. And those unpaid tickets go back to 5 or 10 years. They're never canceled, but they go back 5 or 10 years to predate the time when driver's licenses would not be renewed unless they were paid. So we continue to carry that $1 million or so on our books, and every other municipality that inherited that Provincial Offences Act from the province is doing the same thing. But at least new tickets go against the driver's license. Okay, so we have a recommendation on the floor. Any further questions? Hearing none, I'm about to proceed. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, so now I'm at councillor inquiries or notices of motion. Now, from the short discussion that we had before the meeting, it sounds like Councillor Barrett would like to see additional information coming forward. Talking about chickens again, chickens and bylaws, so I don't know. I know you were thinking of putting forward a notice of motion.
Yes,
Are you still?
I am. It has to do with the bylaw with respect to the SOPs, special occasion permits, and here it is right here. So, under the current policy, there are areas that are identified as eligible for special occasion permits and areas that are not eligible. And one of the areas that's not eligible is the Legion Park and Pavilion. And quite often there are events that are held there where people are taking their drinks or would like to take the drinks to the pavilion or would like to take a beer down when they're playing horseshoes. They have Canada Day and
If they don't debate the issue.
so anyway, so the bylaw, I'd like to move that the Legion Park and Pavilion be removed from the municipal facilities and parks not eligible for SOP events to the municipal facilities and parks eligible for SOP events.
Okay, so you'll bring forward that
I'd like to have that
motion.
motion to come at the next, which meeting should we bring it to?
Well, you're not gonna be here for the 26th,
No,
so
admin finance?
admin finance then in April. And then that gives the staff an opportunity, as we discovered, when we were talking with Shelby this morning, Shelby felt that there probably was a reason that it was listed in that section rather than in the other section. And this will
It's
give,
from, the date of this is 2013.
so staff will have an opportunity to research that.
Do you want the
and see why
bylaw number?
I have a copy of it right here,
Oh,
thank you.
okay.
Go ahead.
Way ahead of me, Dan.
So to your comment on chickens, Mr. Mayor, with regards to the public meeting, this past Monday, that was this Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah, this past Monday, and I know that CDC has done some work on that issue. Before it comes to council, I would very much like for us to have a delegation from OMAFRA, or the Ministry of Concerned Parties, to provide us with some context on the issue of the backyard animal. And because I think it's people are very passionate about this issue, and as was stated at the public meeting, you know, in some cases, we're just picking numbers to start with because we don't know where to start. And do we do it because Gatineau has picked a number, or do we do it because Toronto has picked a number, or do we pick nothing because that's what Ottawa has said? I think that for a rural agricultural community, that we should have a subject matter expert from the province come and tell us, dispel any fears that we might have, and then maybe reinforce our need for maybe a little more robustness to whatever policy we bring forward. Because I think that if done well, I'm very supportive of people raising their children in this community and living in this community where they can not own 500 acres but still have their hands on a bit of agriculture. But it needs to be done in such a way that it's not a nuisance to their neighbors, it's not a public health risk, and that there's no mistreatment of animals at risk here. Just because I can have a chicken doesn't mean I know how to take care of the chicken, and so on. So that's a hot potato that I'd like to, through you, pass to staff, because I'd very much like for one of our committees, either this committee or Public Works, to have a representative from the province come and speak to us on the subject.
Okay, so now we get, so it's gone through the CDC committee, and as Deputy Mayor and I met with Shelby this morning and got a real education that it's on the whiteboard in there. The issue is that the CDC committee has basically made its recommendations, and we've held a public meeting on the basis of those recommendations. Now there are, and basically that cleared the way for the changes to come forward to the bylaw, which in the ordinary course of events, that bylaw would come forward on the 26th, right? Okay, so now we're getting, I'm gonna say, late minute concerns. I know I have some, but we also have the comment from the public meeting where our numbers were challenged by an individual who felt that they should be more robust, bigger than what we were proposing. So the question that I will put to staff is this: how do we, or what is the mechanism without, how do I want to say this? Without questioning the CDC committee, how do we give ourselves a little bit more time and information to deal with this before the bylaw comes up for changes?
My recommendation, Mr. Mayor, would be that you allow the bylaw to come forward on the 26th. It was announced at the public meeting that would happen. Your own procedural bylaw allows you to do it first and second reading only, and then delay anything further for another month if you require further consultation and further information. So that's your council's option, is to give it first and second reading on the 26th, thus living up to their statutory obligation to deal with it on the 26th, but giving 30 days in which to hear more information. My suggestion is that if council wants to suggest a presentation from OMAFRA or somewhere else, that's suitable to go back to CDC, council members are welcome to attend those meetings and hear what they have to say.
Right. Okay, so probably the neat way to do it, rather than just putting the bylaw up for first and second reading, would be when it comes up for first and second reading, to make sure that there's at least one vote cast against it, which delays it automatically by procedure. And then in the meantime, if we kind of know ourselves that bylaw is not going to get the third reading, we can kind of structure the presentations at the CDC meeting, and that, so rather than coming to your committee or back to mine, it would go back to this committee where it originated, and as the clerk indicates, or as the CEO indicates, we can go to those meetings and get our updates from that source. Now, the question is, who's the party of competent authority to make that presentation at the CDC meeting? Would it be the OMAFRA representative? Or how would you suggest? You see, the other side of it is that it could be somebody in the medical field or the disease control field, because I think that's where my concerns are coming. My concerns are coming from the point of disease control.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I believe that Dr. Nason, who sits on the CDC committee, did do some research with respect to those questions, and I believe it was discussed at CDC.
Yes, it was, yeah.
And as far as OMAFRA making a presentation, I believe you were talking to Mr. O'Neill, John O'Neill?
Yeah.
His area of expertise is in minimum distance separation requirements. And I know from speaking with, planners in other municipalities, that OMAFRA's preference is that the municipalities not put any limits on, that every application to house animals is dealt with through the MDS separation requirements of the province. And I don't know, quite frankly, given that bias, whether Mr. O'Neill would be a suitable subject matter expert. If you leave it with me, maybe I can figure somebody out.
Well, the concern I have, I'm just gonna jump in here, the concern I have about his approach there is that in order for us to deal with these things on a case-by-case basis, to my mind, that overtaxes puts an unnecessary onerous burden on our bylaw people.
On our office staff.
On our office staff, that's right. Much better, in my mind, that we lay it out in the bylaw, and then it becomes an administrative matter, just straight, follow the setback restrictions listed in the bylaw. So I think we've done that in our bylaw. We've laid out all our separation distances very, very clearly. That is not the issue that I think we need to have dealt with at CDC. I think the issue that we need to have dealt with at CDC is the biosecurity issue. And I'll tell you what makes me really concerned is that we are an agricultural community. We know that we have farmers here that have very, very big investments in chickens and chicken flocks. And we know that it just takes one little sign of disease to wipe out an entire flock. And we've had the examples of that in this Eastern Ontario neighborhood. So that's, and to your point, everybody likes to have a chicken, but not all people know how to look after them. So what type of an individual do we need that can talk about that? And maybe set some of those kind of standards into our bylaw that we haven't yet set in.
So when I spoke with John, or not spoke, but
I
emailed
got you
him
next
today,
after the deputy.
he indicated that there are people in the OMAFRA office who deal with the science side and the disease part, and that they would be better suited. So to answer the questions that I have, because that's where I'm coming from, is, these are certainly one species where these viruses can actually jump from species to human, so we have that to be considered as well, so.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, if we put it back to CDC and invite all council, are they gonna be able to participate in the discussion openly?
As far as asking questions of the presentation?
Yeah, just wanted to make sure, because I wanted to make sure everybody got their chance to, without being deemed a public meeting.
It's not a public meeting as far as the Planning Act goes, but certainly if the chair wishes to entertain questions from other members of council, that would be her choice.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we were gonna be able to do that without any.
But I think it should be clear, though, that the CDC members are at the table, and other members who are not CDC members are in the audience. Yeah. Okay,
If you're reluctant about dealing with the government, maybe somebody from Burnbury would speak to the issue. They're dealing with that all the time.
That's true.
that's true, or Adobe.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead.
I would just say that, and I am reluctant to deal with the government. However, I would say that like a private business, like a commercial farm would be not so inclined for me to take out 200 of their customers who have their own egg layers in their backyard. So a private business may have an incentive to dissuade us from doing it. So and I don't mean to speak poorly of them, of that company, but I just mean that if I were them, I sure wouldn't want,
Better to have clean, clear heads.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and sorry, Mr. Mayor, just to Councillor Schmale's point, it would be important, being able to attend the CDC, that I'd be able to ask a question of the delegation that I would like to attend a committee of the whole, but if they can't attend a committee of the whole, and I'm attending CDC as a member of the public, I'd like to be able to ask questions, or the situation will be unresolved.
Yep, yep.
Are there questions at the end of the meeting for CDC for people who are in the audience?
Yeah.
Somebody wants-
Just-
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
would
we
be
have question
something.
period, but I just wanted to make sure that we weren't opening up to a public meeting forum, and, you know, as much as I don't like questions, I just don't wanna put that legality back on us, so.
Okay, so I think we've kicked that one around to the point where we have a plan. I just wanna raise one small issue under this section of the agenda, came to my attention today. So, it goes something like this, and it's no reflection on staff, because council set up this situation. So we've made quite a considerable effort, well, I shouldn't say that. We've accommodated the public request to pay their taxes by installment. And quite a number of people have taken advantage of that program that we offered, to pay their taxes by installment. So now when it comes to the end of the year, people have their income tax to file. And one of the documents that becomes, in my mind, an important piece of information to have in your tax file is your taxes for the previous year. If you phone the municipal office, if you're one of those people that pays by installment, and you phone the municipal office in February or March of this year and say, I need a copy of my tax bill, we charge you $5 for that. And I just don't think that that's, it just rings the wrong way for me. Go ahead.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I pay my taxes by installment,
Yeah.
and my final tax billing in August is the only receipt I need.
Okay, not the paid. Okay, so the very tax bill itself. Okay, now that was another thing that came up today. Even if you're on the installment plan, where your taxes are being paid by your bank, you still get the tax bill. Okay, does that resolve it? Maybe it does. You don't need the firm receipt.
No, in fact, you don't even need to send a receipt.
No, I know,
Unless
but
they
you
ask
should
you.
have it in your
Yeah,
file.
but that's all you need is the
Yeah.
August bill.
Okay, so I won't go any further with that one, because I've just been shot down.
Sorry.
Not the first time. Okay, so, are there any other, anything else to bring under councillor inquiries or notice of motion? Okay, hearing none. I'm gonna go on to item 9 on the agenda, which is the mayor's report. And I've got a couple of things to report. Well, I'm gonna go through it rather quickly until I get to the last item. So just a number of things. On February 27th, I attended the United Way Appreciation Event in Brockville, and let's put it to say that there were only 3 mayors there. February the 28th, I met with the interim CEO of the St. Lawrence Parks Commission, because I'm intensely interested to know what's gonna happen with Granville Park this summer, and I have an idea of what their plans are. March the 1st, there was a special joint services meeting of county council concerning the 2018 budget. We did manage to resolve an issue that was holding up the passage of that budget. On March the 2nd, I attended and presented at the Augusta Mayor's Breakfast. And on March the 6th, County Council met and passed the 2018 budget with a 0% increase in the tax rate. So that's now official, and we will be setting the county tax rates at the meeting in March. We passed the joint services budget on the 7th, the next day. Also on the 7th, we had a meeting of the St. Lawrence Quarter Economic Development Commission, that's the monthly meeting, had an update from the commissioner. On March the 8th, I met with the Ingredion concerning the Benson School site, and I have a meeting scheduled with Cardinal Powers sometime next week. I'm just still feeling these folks out as to what their interest is going to be, and whether or not we're going to be in a comfortable position to meet the March 19th deadline for submitting an offer. And I think we have a recommendation from Councillor Smales' Benson School Committee, and Councillor Smale, would you want to just outline what the recommendation that came forward from your committee was?
Certainly, currently that recommendation states, I don't have it in front of me here, but I'll wing it. states that, for the township to, purchase or look to purchase the land up to $25,000 with a demolition cost of below $500,000 with the intent to repurpose that land to Cardinal Ingredient and Cardinal Power.
And I think we're using the word corporate entities rather
Corporate
than
entities,
naming, rather than naming them. And I think
Correct.
the thrust of the recommendation is submitting an offer with conditions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's still in the workaround. I know the CAO has met with the township solicitor over that. On Saturday, I attended the St. Mark's Parish Hall for the Special Olympics fundraiser and Parade of the Athletes. We try to support that little organization every year. And then on March the 10th, Councillor Barrett and I attended and presented at the Little Sisters restaurant official opening here. And so I think Gina was under a fair amount of pressure that day. Go ahead.
Question, Mr. Mayor, you presented by PowerPoint at the Augusta Mayor's Breakfast.
Yeah.
Is there a copy of that available through the clerk, the deputy clerk, or through?
Well, let's put it this way. The mayor put 50 hours of his own time into it.
Okay,
I'm more than happy to present it,
okay,
but I claim a lot of intellectual property on it.
okay,
Mainly because 90% of the presentation is here,
okay,
and the slides just become the talking points.
okay, well,
And I'm happy to present it any place.
if you'd like to present, you're the chair of most of our meetings, so you could, or if there's even a printout of your slide deck, I'd be happy to.
All there is the deck itself.
Okay, okay,
And,
yeah, it'd be nice to be able to see that.
I'd love to present it, really, because I'm quite proud of what we've done in the past 4 years.
May I just, if I may at this time, Mr. Mayor, just interject here and comment on that? I was in attendance at that, through you, and I guess they saved the best to last because they had a guest speaker in between, the new commissioner of the St. Lawrence Corridor Economic Development Committee, and they had the two other townships, and I guess when you have a lot to say, like our township of Eversburg Cardinal, with major happenings, I was, after the presentation, I was very moved to go up and say to the mayor, and I know we haven't always been on the same side of the table, or even on the same side of the fence, sitting or whatnot, but I had to go up and commend him for the excellent presentation. Being a former school teacher, and you see how presentations go, and of course he was one himself, it wasn't hard to see where he was coming from and how right to the very end the audience was totally consumed by what was being presented, and the way it started off, taking 5 major farms. We often forget about farming and agriculture. And it started out with the farming presentation and how these 5 farms, and from the robotic milkers to so many head, to so many, the automatic feeder, and how it went on to say those 5 farms produce, crops and products that go to Ingredient, go to the ethanol plant, and to our port, and the offshoot of those is Greenfields produces 3 products, ethanol, and we have animal feed, and now we have the CO2 with the air liquid, and how it all came apart, and then you kind of ended, and of course we all know the giant tiger happening and stuff like that as a summation. So it was in my opinion, a lot of good comments, a lot of good, it was an excellent presentation, and it was well deserved, and I commend the mayor for his time and effort to do so. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your comments, and so with everybody's permission, we'll get it up and present it at some meeting. But I want to go on now to the last item on my agenda here tonight, and I want to introduce council tonight to a company called Greenergy. And notice the way it's spelt on your agenda. And I've got a few slides here that I just want to use to introduce this company. And before Rebecca puts them up, I'm just going to make a few introductory comments, and I'll try to put them in some sort of a sequential order. And let me start this way by saying some proponents of development in our township approach council in different ways. Different proponents approach in different ways. Some proponents will approach the mayor directly to see how to get things going. Others will come into the municipal office and talk with the CAO. And some take a combination of both, and I use Giant Tiger as an example. When Giant Tiger was the proponent, they asked to speak to the mayor and the CAO, and they met us here in the office with their entire team. Doesn't always work out that way. Each proponent does it differently. This particular proponent, Greenergy, is a new proponent that's coming to us through Clayton Jones at Jones Rail and Cruise. Now, this proponent has asked to meet all of council and to have all of council present because they want to, at that meeting, judge council's propensity for development. They want to look you in the eye and hear what you have to say. Now, I have offered them 4 dates when all of council was present. I've offered them March the 12th, which was today, which was too soon, March the 19th, which was the PW meeting, March the 21st, which is the port meeting, and I offered them as well the council meeting on the 26th when all of council would be present, and I also offered to call a special meeting. I just said, your choice. They jumped on March the 21, which is the port meeting. I went to talk to the port manager, asked him if it would put his nose out of a joint if they came and talked to council at that meeting, and he's fair with that. Now, I explained to the proponent that all of these meetings would be open, public meetings where the public would be invited to attend and to listen and to know what their plans were. They selected March the 21st. So now I'm introducing Greenergy or Greenergy, however they pronounce their name, because I'd like council between now and the 21st to really look deeply into this company so that when they come and make a presentation, you know who they are and what they're up to. And the reason I'm saying that is because I'd like somebody at that meeting to say, well, you know, can we put forward some kind of a motion that we approve your plan in principle? That motion can't come from the chair. So now, Rebecca, I'll ask you to tell us about Greenergy using the slides that we just pulled out. First, let me say that Greenergy is a European-based company, UK-based actually, that does business throughout the world. And they have a very unique way of delivering gasoline and diesel products into the markets that they serve. They came from the UK into Canada in 2012. So go ahead from there. I think this was the press release where they said they're coming to council.
No, this is the company overview.
Okay, go ahead. This is their trucks, and they will have a fleet of trucks if the proposal goes ahead based in this area, we believe. This is their executives. Their executives are based in New Brunswick. The people that we're meeting with will be coming from New Brunswick. I don't know all the players, and I don't know which of the players will be coming. This is where they announced they're coming to Canada in the second quarter of 2013. So they've only been here since 2013. Go ahead. And do we have one more? Do we have
Yep.
the?
I'm just opening it up. It has to
Okay,
go
here's the
through
little
opposite
video
way.
that shows how they do business, and you can see how it ties in with Jones Rail.
It's working earlier today.
They will be bringing a CN rep with them.
Greenergy is a fuel supplier that was focused on providing the lowest cost to the customers and providing the best customer service possible, making sure that we're the easiest supplier to deal with. We're at the CN cargo flow installation in Vaughan, Ontario, just north of Toronto.
Greenergy approached CN with a concept, and our marketing team brought the opportunity to our operations group, and through discussions with various engineering firms, we developed the facility.
Cargo Flow is a rail-to-road fuel supply terminal where fuel haulers can come load 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for their customers. Where your typical terminal is fed either by pipeline or a ship, This terminal is fed strictly by rail.
Rail reduces the carbon footprint, and that one rail car fuel is equivalent to 2.5 truckloads. In addition, it removes trucks from the highway and provides a safe and efficient method of transporting goods.
That allows us to minimize the infrastructural footprint and place it closer to customer demand. CN's great to work with. They're a Class 1 rail operator that's focused on safely moving our fuel and storing it. But working with CN's vast network across North America, we have ample opportunities to source low-cost fuel for our customers and bring it to Cargo Flow.
The Cargo Flow initiative is a good fit with CN because Cargo Flow can develop a facility that combines long-haul rail with short-haul trucking. This allows Green Energy to be positioned closer to the end user.
CN's great to work with. We share a lot of the same focus on safety, service, and reliability. Cargo Flow works the same as any other terminal. Trucks arrive, drivers load fuel safely for their customers. My site is operational 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so drivers can be loaded fuel at any time. First thing that happens is the rail cars arrive to the facility and they're hooked up to the truck racks by the CN operator. Once the truck arrives, the driver hooks up his Scully. The Scully system is in place to make sure the truck is loaded safely. Once the driver gets the green light, he's able to load. Connects his vapor recovery line. The vapor recovery line ensures that all of the vapors from loading are returned back to the system, that they don't make their way into the environment. Hooks up the loading arms and then keys in his load. Once he's finished, he disconnects and is on his way. Where's your typical terminal with large fuel tanks to store fuel? We've substituted those tanks with rail cars. The same rail cars that are used to transport the fuel to Cargo Flow are used as the storage tanks upon arrival. It's good because it reduces the amount of fuel kept on site here, which ultimately leads to a safer site. Green Energy has a very strong commitment to safety. It's at the forefront of everything we do. CN Cargo Flow is a secure site. It's fully automated and it's manned 24 hours a day by CN operators. And even the rail cars, they're inspected prior to load, after load, and during transit to Cargo Flow. And once they arrive, they're also inspected to make sure there's no defects and the cars are safe to offload. We have state-of-the-art systems in place that allow us to custom blend biofuels to meet any federal or provincial mandates. We also have fuel additive systems in place that allow us to improve the performance of the fuel. The good news is Canada is growing. As that demand continues to grow, the challenge becomes keeping the necessary infrastructure in place to reliably supply that demand.
So that's all I want to say. They'll make their own pitch on March the 21st, and in the meantime, you've got some time to kind of do your own due diligence off their website and see what kind of a company they are, and kind of get I'm hoping that they'll be very forthcoming with what their proposal is. It's I've spent some time talking to Clayton. I'm not in a position to speak for Green Energy or for Clayton, so we'll just wait and see how the meeting unfolds on the 21st.
Mr. Mayor, will then you be here at 6:30?
Yes, it'll be here at 6:30, and that's what I wanted you and Mr. Robertson to be here, and I'm going to talk to the two community representatives that are on Port of Johnstown to just refer them to that website as well. Okay, so that's my report, and so now we're at item number 10 on the agenda, which is the question period. So are there any questions from the folks here tonight? And Evelyn, it's nice to see you back again.
Thank you, thank you. I had a question, and it was just about the animal thing, but if that's going to be discussed at CDC,
Yes.
I'll wait.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I understand why that's the way it is.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody? Okay, I'm about to move on. We do have a closed session here this evening, and I think we have a motion someplace to go into closed session. It's important that that motion be passed in public so that you know why we're going into closed session. But Jerry got it?
No, I have one for the closed session, approve the minutes of the closed session.
I have adjournment.
You have adjournment?
I have a copy, but you don't use it.
What does it
I
say?
got the approach.
Oh, you got it?
Okay,
And it closed.
That says
So
copy.
I'll move that,
go ahead.
that we, at 8:05, move into closed session.
To address the matter.
Okay.
I'll second it, just
I
put my
can't
name
read
down.
it, I can't read that quickly. In order to address as a matter pertaining to
The third one down.
Benson and proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land for municipal or local board purposes, specifically Benson. And the minutes of the closed session dated February the 12th, 2018.
That's it.
I need your copy. Can you sign it?
I haven't yet.
You said you were seconding?
Okay, you've heard the motion, those in favor of the motion? The motion is carried, we'll have a little adjournment here for 10 minutes, and then we'll start the closed session.
The meeting is now adjourned, the open meeting of the committee of the whole is now resumed at 9:37 PM.
Move the minutes of the closed session. Who's got the minutes of the closed session?
I do. I have moved by myself.
Want to sign that one first?
Okay, so it's
I don't
okay,
have
there
it.
is a motion.
Thank you.
Okay, moved by,
Usually
I do that now?
Yeah.
You want us to go over?
Okay, so now this is the closed meeting adjourning at 9:37. Those in favor? Okay, that motion is carried. Now, coming out of the closed session and reporting out of the closed session, council reviewed the minutes of the closed session of February the 12th. Who has the motion to approve the closed meeting of February the 12th?
I moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Barrett, that committee of the whole approves the minutes of the closed session of February 12th, 2018.
Okay, that motion is on the table. Those in favor? That motion is carried. Now, reporting further out of the closed session, the committee provided staff with instruction with regard to making an offer on the Benson School property and arranged with the clerk to call a special meeting of council on Monday the 19th at 6 p.m. with the solicitor present. Now, who has the motion to adjourn?
Moved by myself and seconded by Mr. Robertson, that we, committee of the whole is now adjourned at 9:38. Hope you don't mind.
And those in favor of the motion? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, folks, very interesting.